Time for J. It's similar to I, except a few things. We've added some new functions. We have signs now. And over on the left, instead of having an addition sign, we have multiplication. Now, hopefully by this point, you're starting to recognize we have multiplication. What does that mean? That means we must use the product rule. That means we must use the product rule. Since we're doing the product rule, we break it into a first part of our function and a second part of our function. So here is our first part, and here is our second part. So let's just grab some scratch paper over here, and I'm going to write all of these down. So what is my first? My first is x squared, and we all know the derivative of x squared is 2x. And then my second is y cubed, and what's the derivative of y cubed going to be? Just like it was a second ago, it is 3y squared times y prime. So y cubed is 3y squared, but since we took the derivative of y, we get a y prime onto our problem. Okay, so now we're ready for the first step, which is derivative everything. Differentiate is the way to say it in math language. I don't always like formal math language, so let's derivative everything. You take the derivative of the first, which is x squared, times, the derivative of the first, which is 2x, times the second, which is y cubed. So we're taking the derivative of the first times the second, plus the first, which is x squared, times the derivative of the second, 3y squared y prime. So there we go. So this is the product rule used on these two terms. Okay, so we did the product rule, we got those two terms, and now we have to move over to the right-hand side to get the other two terms. So we've got the derivative of sine of x is cosine of x, and the derivative of sine of y is cosine of y, but we just took a derivative with a y in it, so what does that mean? It means we have a y prime added to our problem. So again, this y is the inside function. Take the derivative of the inside and get y prime. The derivative of the outside, sine, is cosine. So cosine y times y prime. Okay, now so that's our first step, was to take the derivative of everything. Step number 2 is to solve for y primes. And so now I do the exact same thing I had earlier. So I'm going to subtract cosine y prime from both sides. And I'm also going to subtract 2x y cubed from both sides. And I'm just doing that so that I can get all my y primes on the same side, all my non-y primes on the other side, and that'll make our algebra all work out a lot nicer. Okay, so now on the left, what have I got left? I have x squared times 3y squared y prime minus cosine y prime. On the right-hand side, I have cosine x minus 2x y cubed. Now, on the left-hand side, I factor out my y primes. So I've got y prime, and what's left? Well, how about if I switch the order here? I just like having that 3 first. 3x squared y squared minus cosine y. So that's what I got on the left when I factor my y primes out. On the right-hand side, I have cosine x minus 2x y cubed. Now I'm ready for the very last step. Oh, I'm dropping stuff. Again, this is not always going to be professional. Okay, so now I'm ready for division, and so I just divide by this part with the y prime. So I took my y primes and factored them out, and now I divide by the part that doesn't have the y prime, and I've got cosine x minus 2x y cubed, all divided by 3x squared y squared minus cosine y. And there's our final answer, and we're all done.